That morning felt like a snatch asterisk T from a life that wasn't mine anymore. The house was quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't soothe but presses down on your chest like extra gravity. I stood at the kitchen counter making coffee like I always did. Grinding the beans, boiling water, watching the steam curl up into the sunlight bleeding through the blinds. It smelled warm and familiar, but I felt cold anyway. Brooke was still upstairs, probably picking through her outfits like it mattered. She always had this way of making even a casual day look like an event. Back when things were good, I used to love that about her, the way she cared about the little things. Now it just felt like a performance I wasn't invited to watch. I made breakfast anyway. 2 plates. Her eggs, soft scrambled with a touch of cheddar, and mine, over hard. A pair of buttered toast slices, crusts she always tore off and left on the plate like bones after a meal. Old rituals, I guess. They made me feel like I was doing something right, even when everything else was screaming otherwise. Then I placed the envelope on the table, white, plain, thick enough to carry weight even before she opened it. Inside was a printed hotel receipt. 1 night at Harmony Suites, Deluxe Queen, spa add-on, parking validated. Not exactly the setup for a girl's night. She told me she was staying with friends. No specifics, just a vague shrug and a you don't know them. That was a few days ago. I hadn't slept right since. I didn't ask where the receipt came from. She knew I had my ways. She used to joke that I'd missed my calling as a detective. Now that didn't sound so funny. She came down the stairs humming, actually humming, like nothing was wrong, like we were still 2 people who shared more than air and a mortgage. She wore the soft blue cardigan I hadn't seen in weeks. Her hair was still damp from the shower, clinging to her neck. There was a time I would have kissed her there, just because. Instead, I just said, morning. She glanced up, flashed a tight smile, and poured herself coffee without even asking how I wanted mine. Another small thing. The kind you don't notice at first until they stack up like bricks on your chest. She sat at the table, phone in one hand, sipping from her mug like it was just another Tuesday. "What's this?" she asked, finally noticing the envelope. I didn't answer. Just sat across from her and waited. She opened it slowly, pulling the paper out with a practiced kind of detachment. Scanned it. No pause. No flinch. Just this subtle shift in her jaw, barely noticeable, but I caught it. She set it down like it was junk mail. "Seriously, Jake," she said. "You're going through my things now?" I blinked at her. "You said you were staying with friends." "I was," she said, tone flat, eyes sharp. "Why do you always assume the worst?" "Because the worst keeps showing up dressed like you." Her expression didn't crack. She just leaned back, crossed her arms, and said, "You're being paranoid again. That's why I didn't tell you. You overreact. You always have." Always? That word. Like I'd been defective from the start and she just hadn't bothered to read the manual. "Then tell me the truth," I said, quieter this time. "Just one straight answer." She rolled her eyes. "You know what? I don't have to justify every second of my life to you. You want to play detective? Fine. Enjoy that. But don't expect me to stand trial every time I go out." And just like that, she stood up, grabbed her bag, and headed for the door. No apology. No explanation. Not even a hint of regret. "Brooke." She paused, hand on the doorknob. "What? Do you even care?" Her mouth twitched. She looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in days. Maybe weeks. And I swear, for a second, there was something human there. Not guilt. Not sadness. Just tiredness. Like she'd already packed her bags in her head and was just waiting for the right weather to leave. Then she said, "You're exhausting, Jake," and walked out. The door clicked shut behind her. Not slammed. Not shoved. Just shut. Clean. Cold. Final. I stood there for a moment, staring at that door like it might open again. Like she might come back, say she was sorry, say it was all a mistake. But the silence told me everything I needed to know. I sat back down at the table opposite her untouched breakfast. The eggs were cooling. The toast sat there, lonely and buttered. Her coffee mug left a ring on the wood. And right in front of me, that damn receipt, printed in neat ink with her name and the date she lied. My fingers curled around the mug and I stared at the steam that was already fading. It felt like a metaphor I didn't ask for. That was the moment. Not the lie. Not the receipt. Not even the look she gave me when she left. It was the silence after. It was the way the room didn't feel like our home anymore. It was the sound of nothing. I thought I'd feel rage. Maybe betrayal. But all I felt was the slow, cold creep of clarity. Like finally seeing a wound you thought was healing only to realize it had gone septic underneath. She'd stopped caring a long time ago. I just hadn't noticed. Or maybe I had. Maybe I noticed every single time she pulled away, every night she came home later than before, every laugh that didn't sound like it was meant for me. I'd just been too scared to say it out loud. Because once you name a truth, you can't pretend it's not real. The receipt wasn't proof, it was punctuation. The end of something. Whatever we were, whatever we thought we were building, it had already cracked somewhere deep in the foundation. Now I was just the guy standing in the ruins, holding blueprints no one cared about anymore. I looked around the kitchen. Every surface, every item, every detail bore our fingerprints. Photos on the fridge. The calendar we hadn't updated in months. The fruit bowl she never kept full like she used to. Her sunglasses still hanging from the chair. Little signs of life, of cohabitation, but none of connection. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I just sat there. Let it settle in. And it did. Like dust after an explosion. I don't know how long I stayed there. Long enough for the sun to shift, casting light through the window at a new angle. Long enough for the silence to become a presence, not just an absence. When I finally stood up, I poured both cups of coffee down the drain. Cleaned the plates. Put away the food. Left the envelope on the table. Let it be a monument to the moment everything truly changed. After Brooke walked out that morning, I didn't move for a long time. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the spot where the envelope had been. The surface was bare now, except for a faint mark from her coffee mug. You wouldn't think a circle like that could carry weight, but it did. It felt like a scar. I kept telling myself I needed to get up, needed to do something, go to work, make calls, exist, but I couldn't shake the stillness that had settled inside me. It was like the air had thickened. My chest felt full, but not in the way it used to when I thought about us. Not full of love, or hope, or even anger. Just full of something heavy. Something sharp. By noon, I still hadn't left the house. My phone buzzed a few times, texts from coworkers, a missed call from my brother, but I ignored them. I wasn't ready to explain what I didn't fully understand myself. I wasn't ready to give it a name. But I knew one thing, nothing about her behavior made sense anymore. Not if I kept looking at it through the lens of who she used to be. To understand Brooke now, I had to see her for who she'd become. I just didn't want to admit that I already knew. So I started digging, not out of vengeance, but out of desperation. I needed clarity. I needed to know how long I'd been living in a story someone else was rewriting behind my back. It started with the little things. Her perfume had changed about 6 months ago. She said she was trying something new, something fresh and grown. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. Just Brooke being Brooke, always changing, always experimenting. But that new scent? It wasn't chosen for me. It didn't smell like her. It smelled like someone trying to be noticed. Then there were the late nights. Meetings that didn't make sense. Events that weren't on her calendar. She used to be the most transparent person I knew. We used to plan everything together. But lately, her plans came as afterthoughts. She'd casually mention something while walking out the door, like it didn't even warrant a conversation. I remember one evening, maybe a month back. She came home wearing a men's button-down shirt, oversized, gray, a little wrinkled. She said it was her friend Sarah's boyfriend's, left behind after a beach weekend. We got cold, she'd said with a shrug, like that explained why she was wearing it home, like it was just normal. At the time, I wanted to believe her. I nodded, pretended it didn't sting. But the truth? That shirt haunted me. It was the first time I realized my gut had been screaming while my brain was busy making excuses. I started checking small details. Her phone, always face down. Her laptop, now locked with a new password. The Bluetooth history in our shared car, it had shown a new phone name 2 weeks ago. JX, not hers, not mine. She said it was someone at work who borrowed her car during lunch. I pretended that made sense. It didn't. Then there were the receipts. Not one, not two, but a small stack I'd found tucked into the drawer beside her side of the bed. Upscale restaurants, places we'd never gone together. Wine bars. A sushi lounge with glowing reviews about its in asterisk mate setting and moody lighting. The kind of place you go when you want to impress someone. Or hide with them. I took pictures of the receipts, not because I needed proof to accuse her, but because I needed proof that I wasn't losing my mind. The hardest part? Looking back and realizing how many times I'd ignored things just to keep the peace. I thought that's what love meant. I thought staying quiet, giving her space, trusting her, that those were the good parts. The strong parts. But what I was doing wasn't love. It was denial. I kept thinking about this one afternoon, early spring, before any of this came to the surface. We'd gone out for coffee, sat on a bench downtown watching people pass. She was quiet that day, distracted. At the time I told myself she was just tired, maybe stressed from work. I asked her if everything was okay and she'd smiled and leaned her head on my shoulder. I'm just in my head, she'd said. But I'm lucky. You're good to me. Those words had felt like a bomb at the time. I replayed them in my head for weeks. Now they felt cruel. Because if she really believed that, how could she do what she was doing? If I was good to her, if I was enough, then why did she need someone else? I was beginning to understand something people don't talk about enough. Betrayal doesn't just come out of nowhere. It builds. Quietly. Slowly. Like mold behind a wall. By the time you see it, it's already rotted through the structure. I thought about asking her outright. About confronting her again. But I knew how that would go. She'd twist it. She'd cry maybe. Or worse, she'd laugh it off like I was pathetic for even bringing it up. I'd been there before. Gaslight into silence. Into thinking I was the problem for even asking questions. So I kept collecting. Clues. Patterns. Moments. And there were moments. Like the night I woke up at 2 a.m. and found her sitting on the porch whispering into her phone. When I asked who she was talking to, she said no one, just clearing her head. The phone was already in airplane mode when she showed it to me. Or the new lingerie I found in the laundry basket, tags already cut off. When I asked about it, she said she'd ordered it on a whim but hadn't even worn it yet. I didn't mention that I just washed it. All these moments stacked like kindling. Just waiting for a match. Still, part of me kept hoping I was wrong. That there was a reasonable explanation. That maybe Brooke was going through something and didn't know how to talk to me. That maybe we were broken but not beyond repair. But that kind of hope has a cost. It makes you slow. Makes you second-guess what you already know. It makes you weak when you need to be strong. I didn't want to be weak anymore. So I started pulling away too. Quietly. Subtly. I stopped asking where she was going. Stopped texting when she was late. Stopped waiting up. And she noticed. Not enough to change, but enough to mention it. "You're distant lately," she said one night while brushing her hair before bed. "Is everything okay?" I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. Instead, I just said, "Yeah. Just tired." And she nodded. Didn't press. Didn't reach for me. That was the part that hurt most. Not the lies. Not the mystery. But the fact that she didn't even try to fix it. She was already gone. She just hadn't left yet. I didn't set out that day expecting to catch her. Honestly, I didn't even know where I was driving. But there's something about suspicion that doesn't sit quietly. It scratches at your insides until you either give in or go crazy. It started with the old app. We'd set it up years ago, FindMate or something like that, back when Brooke used to lose her phone at coffee shops or accidentally leave it at yoga. I'd forgotten all about it and I assumed she had too. But I checked just in case. And it worked. I remember just sitting there, staring at the little pulsing blue dot, watching it move slowly across the screen. My breath caught when it stopped, nowhere near where she said she'd be. No downtown co-working space, no client lunch spot. No boutique hotel this time either. It was a residential neighborhood I didn't recognize. Suburban, quiet. The kind of place with porch swings and plastic flamingos in the yard. The address she gave me earlier that day was completely different, some restaurant across town she claimed to have a meeting at. I told myself maybe it was nothing. Maybe a carpool situation. Maybe a flat tire. Maybe I still wanted to be that naive. But I drove there anyway. The sun was out, but the clouds had started to creep in. That weird in-between light filtered through the windshield as I parked on the corner. I stayed in the car for a while, hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles went pale. I felt like I was about to rob a house, and in a way, I guess I was. I was about to steal the last shreds of my own denial. It didn't take long to find her. The building was a 2-story duplex with a small upstairs balcony. I recognized her instantly, even from the car, her posture, the way she held her cigarette like she was starring in a black and white movie. And then I saw him. She was sitting on his lap. They weren't hiding. She wasn't even pretending. She laughed she laughed and leaned back against him like she belonged there. His hand was around her waist, fingers splayed like he was claiming her. She tilted her head toward him, said something I couldn't hear, and he kissed her on the neck like it was routine. Like they'd done this before. I didn't move. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. I just raised my phone, tapped the camera, and snapped the photo. It wasn't about revenge or even proof anymore. It was about grounding myself. Because in that moment, everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my wife, my life was slipping away. And I needed something to hold onto. The picture was clear. Daylight, mid-laugh, full betrayal. She wore the cardigan I'd bought her last Christmas. The irony didn't even sting. It just landed. Another item repurposed in someone else's story. 10 minutes later, I got a text from her. "Lunch is dragging, might be a late one. Love you, yellow heart." I stared at it for a while. The emoji almost made me laugh. Like she still thought she was fooling me. Like this whole thing was some lighthearted juggling act and I was just one more ball in the air. I didn't respond. Instead, I lowered the phone, turned the ignition, and drove. I didn't head home. I didn't have a plan. I just kept driving until the streets blurred into a stream of houses and stop signs. My heart didn't even race. It slowed, like my body had gone into emergency power mode. Like it was trying to protect me from the full weight of what I'd just seen. At a red light, I pulled over into a gas station lot and sat there for a while. That's when the second wave hit, not shock, not sadness. Clarity. I scrolled through my phone, back to the picture, and stared at it. Not to punish myself, but to accept it. This was real. Not a dream. Not a misunderstanding. Not a maybe. This was my wife wrapped up in someone else's life. With ease. With joy. The betrayal wasn't even in asterisk, mate. It was casual. Habitual. Planned. That's what broke me the most, not the act itself, but how ordinary it was for her. She didn't look like someone cheating. She looked like someone who'd already moved on. And maybe she had. There was a kind of quiet power in knowing, though. In not having to guess anymore. I didn't have to piece together the puzzle or convince myself it was all in my head. I had the image. I had the timeline. I had the proof. And I had the decision. The old me would have driven home and waited. Would have confronted her with trembling hands, voice cracking, demanding reasons I'd never get. Would have let her twist the truth until it sounded almost plausible. But I wasn't that guy anymore. So I kept driving. I found myself on a side road near the lake, the kind of spot we used to go when things were still easy. Before marriage, before jobs got heavy, before everything felt like it was measured in resentments. I parked facing the water and just sat there with the windows cracked. I played the scenarios in my head. 1. Confrontation. Big fight. Shouting match. Her crying. Me crying. Accusations, half-truths, maybe an apology. 2. Denial. She gaslights. Says I misinterpreted it. That it was just a friend. That I'd gone too far. That I needed to reflect on why I was tracking her. 3. Admission. She breaks down. Says she's been unhappy. Says it was a mistake. Says she loves me. Begs for forgiveness. But none of those paths led anywhere I wanted to go. Every road led back to something broken. And I wasn't sure I could live with that anymore. By the time the sun started dipping low on the water, I knew what I had to do. Not just because of the photo, or the texts, or the lies, but because of what it was doing to me. Who I was becoming. Paranoid. Obsessive. Small. That wasn't me. It couldn't be me. She was choosing someone else, sure. But I had to choose myself. I drove home slow. Deliberate. Every turn was a breath. Every block, a choice. I wasn't chasing answers anymore. I wasn't hoping she'd explain it away. I was preparing to let go. The house was empty when I got back. Her shoes weren't at the door. Her perfume didn't linger. The silence was thick but not oppressive this time. I sat at the kitchen table, pulled up the photo again, and saved it to a hidden folder. I didn't want to look at it again, but I couldn't delete it either. It was the receipt for the truth. That night, she came home late. Said she was wiped from work. Kissed me on the forehead like I was a child. Asked what we should do for dinner like she hadn't just rewritten our marriage a few hours earlier. I told her I wasn't hungry. She didn't ask why. And that, more than anything, told me everything I needed to know. I didn't leave the next day. I didn't leave the day after that either. What I did instead was go quiet. That's how it started. Silence. Not the kind you use to punish someone, not passive aggression or cold shoulder tactics. This was different. This was peace. Or maybe numbness. They feel the same when you're in it. Brooke didn't notice at first. That was the worst part. You expect when a marriage hits a silent wall that the other person will stop and turn around, ask if something's wrong. But she didn't. She filled the space with noise, her phone, work updates, new restaurant recommendations, something her friends saw on TikTok. She talked like everything was fine, like I was still there. But I wasn't. I was already packing in my head. I spent 3 more days living as a ghost in my own home. Every morning, I made coffee like usual, but I didn't wait for her to come downstairs. I drank it alone. I took walks around the block, stared at the neighbors' porches, listened to the wind rustle their mail. The smallest details started to feel massive. The way our kitchen light flickered, the chipped corner on the hallway picture frame, her laughter from the other room while she scrolled through something funny, still unaware that she wasn't living with the same man anymore. At night, I'd lie in bed with my back to her. She never reached out. Not once. No hand on my shoulder. No, "Are we okay?" She didn't ask because I think she already knew. And she didn't ask because the answer would have made her uncomfortable. I slept less and less. but I was more awake than I'd been in months. Then one morning, I realized I didn't want to wait anymore. It wasn't rage that made me decide. It wasn't even heartbreak. It was this calm, steady feeling that wrapped around me like a coat. I couldn't fix what she'd broken, and I wasn't going to try anymore. I'd done the begging in my head already, relived every moment, asked every what. There was nothing left to salvage. So I chose a Thursday. She had yoga, or drinks, or a late client. I don't remember what the excuse was that day. What I do remember is the sound of her car pulling away. That's when I stood up from the couch, walked to the bedroom, and opened the closet. I didn't take much, just the essentials. A week's worth of clothes. A few books I couldn't bear to leave. My laptop, a framed photo of my parents from their anniversary trip. Back when love still looked like something to admire. I left everything else behind. Not out of kindness, but because I didn't want it. The house, the furniture, the life we'd built. It all felt staged now, like a showroom version of a marriage. Polished on the outside, hollow on the inside. I left the house key on the kitchen counter. No note. No explanation. She'd figure it out soon enough. She was smart when it mattered. I took one last look at the living room before I walked out. The couch we'd picked together. The TV we never watched anything real on anymore. Her mug still sitting in the sink with lipstick on the rim. All of it frozen in time. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. No slamming. No drama. Just an end. I didn't go to a hotel. I didn't check into a short-term rental or call some sleek urban loft. I drove straight to Trevor's place. Trevor's my cousin. We grew up thick as thieves but hadn't really spoken in years. Not from any falling out. Just life, distance, and the slow drift that happens when adulthood pulls people in different directions. Still, I knew I could show up at his door without a reason, and he wouldn't ask for one. When he opened the door, he just looked at me, took in the duffel bag over my shoulder and the hollow in my eyes, and said, "Come in, man." That was it. No judgment. No fishing for drama. Just a quiet, open door. He set me up in the basement. Not much to look at. Bare concrete floors, boxes stacked along the walls, a twin bed with an old comforter. But I swear, it felt like a sanctuary. No Brooke. No pretending. No lies hiding behind a familiar voice. That night, I lay on that narrow mattress, staring at the exposed ceiling beams and letting the quiet settle around me. Not the eerie kind of quiet from our house. This one was cleaner, lighter. No lies lived in this room. I think I slept for 10 hours straight. When I woke up, something had shifted. Not everything. Not grief. Not the ache. That was still there, of course. But I felt present. And that was more than I'd felt in months. Trevor didn't ask me about Brooke the next morning. He just made us scrambled eggs and played some vinyl records he'd been collecting. He talked about music, a show he'd been watching, the neighbor's weird dog. All normal things. And for the first time, I realized how starved I was for normal. The second day, I helped him clean out a storage closet. We found old board games, broken headphones, and a dusty stack of DVDs neither of us remembered owning. Sounds dumb, but it made me feel grounded. Real life. Real messes. Not the kind you make by betraying someone, but the kind that comes from just living. And in that basement, surrounded by dust and the hum of a box fan, I started to feel like myself again. I checked my phone later that afternoon. 17 messages. All from Brooke. Some of them were short. "Where are you? Jake? Seriously? Answer your phone." Then they got longer. Emotional. Scattered. "If this is some kind of punishment, I don't deserve it. You're being dramatic. We can talk about this. Don't walk away from me. From us." I didn't respond. What was I supposed to say? That I'd seen her? That I'd known for weeks? That the woman I once trusted with everything had turned into a stranger with a familiar smile? No. I wasn't going to give her the power to pull me back into a conversation I didn't ask for. Instead, I turned the phone off. That night, Trevor and I sat on the porch and drank a couple of beers in silence. He still hadn't asked, and I still hadn't told him. But he looked over at me and said, "Whatever it was, you didn't deserve it." It hit me harder than I expected. I just nodded. We didn't talk more after that. Didn't need to. I woke up on the 5th day to the sound of birds outside Trevor's tiny basement window. They were loud, overly enthusiastic about something simple, sunlight, probably. It annoyed me at first. But then I realized it was the first time I hadn't woken up to dread. I lay there for a while, staring at the ceiling like it might offer some kind of clarity. It didn't. But I wasn't waiting for answers anymore. That was the difference. I didn't need her explanations. I didn't need closure. I needed direction. So I got up. The first thing I did that morning after brushing my teeth and tossing on a hoodie was open my laptop. My hands still felt shaky, but my mind was clearer than it had been in months. I poured myself a mug of instant coffee and sat at the little folding table Trevor had shoved in the corner of the room. And I started typing. The email was short, just 2 lines. Hey Peter, I need a favor. You still practicing family law? I need to talk. Peter was a lawyer I'd met years ago, divorce and civil litigation. I'd helped him redesign his firm's website for cheap when he was just starting out. Back then he used to say, if you ever need anything, seriously, anything, just say the word. I never thought I'd cash the chip in. But here I was, typing the word. Within an hour, he called me. No hesitation. Jake, he said. Talk to me. I told him the broad strokes. Nothing graphic. No drama. Just facts. He didn't ask unnecessary questions. That's what I appreciated most. I'll get things moving, he said. Do you want this clean or scorched earth? Clean, I said. But not weak. He laughed just once. Got it. When I hung up, it felt like flipping a switch. The decision was made. The process had started. And something about that made my breathing feel easier. It wasn't just leaving her. It was removing myself from the game she thought we were still playing. That afternoon, I turned my phone back on. Big mistake. The texts had tripled. They ranged wildly in tone. Are you serious right now? This isn't funny. You don't get to ghost me in our own marriage. I'm not doing this through lawyers, Jake. Grow up. Let's just talk like adults. Please. You owe me that much. I read through all of them. Every word. Not to torture myself, but to see how deep her delusion went. She still thought this was salvageable. Or worse, she didn't, but she was trying to keep control of the narrative. Because that's who Brooke had become, someone who couldn't stand not being in control. I didn't reply to any of them. I archived the thread, turned off notifications, and tucked the phone away in my backpack. If silence was my only P*, and now I was going to wield it like a scalpel. And to be honest, it didn't feel like silence anymore. It felt like peace. That evening, Trevor got home from work and found me reorganizing his basement shelves like some kind of nesting bird. He gave me a look that said, "You okay?" But didn't press it. Over dinner, microwave burritos, and cheap beer, I finally told him everything. I didn't give him the watered-down version either. I gave him the truth. About the hotel receipt. The laughter on the balcony. The lies. The messages. The months of watching my marriage rot from the inside out while pretending the smell wasn't real. Trevor sat through all of it without interrupting. Just listened. When I finished, he set down his beer and said, "You didn't deserve that." Not a second of it. Funny how those words hit different when someone you trust says them. He didn't offer advice. He didn't try to spin it into some motivational poster. He just told me he was proud of me for walking away. That meant more than I expected. After that conversation, things moved fast. Peter sent over the initial paperwork for review. It looked clinical, almost boring, like the formality of ending a marriage could be captured in bullet points and line items. I skimmed through the legalese, but one line stopped me cold. Irretrievable breakdown of the marriage. That was the term they used. Clean. Safe. Emotionless. But it was accurate. Too accurate. I signed it. The next morning, Brooke must have sensed something changed because the texts took a different tone. They weren't angry anymore. They were almost soft. Jake, I don't want to lose you. Can we please just talk, even once? I messed up. I know I did. But we had something real. That has to mean something. We're not past the point of no return. I swear. I stared at that last one for a while. We passed that point the moment she sat in someone else's lap and laughed like I didn't exist. That's the part she couldn't grasp. It wasn't the cheating. It was the ease of it. The casual betrayal. The way she came home afterward and wore my t-shirts and kissed my cheek and slept beside me like nothing happened. That's what K** led it. Not a single mistake, but the comfort with which she repeated it. And now, with her grip slipping, she was trying to play the only card she had left, nostalgia. The idea of us. The history we shared. But here's the thing about history, it can't undo the present. That night, Trevor invited some friends over for a movie. I joined them. Ate popcorn. Laughed at dumb jokes. Pretended I wasn't carrying the wreckage of a marriage in my chest. And for a few hours, it worked. After everyone left, I sat alone for a bit, scrolling through old photos on my phone. Vacations, birthdays, moments that once meant everything. I thought I'd feel sadness, maybe regret, but mostly I felt gratitude. Not for the relationship, but for the fact that I was finally out of it. And more importantly, out of her reach.